Alright, good evening everyone. Welcome to the 12th episode of Cultist Simulator, the Librarian run, playing as Ivan Vucetich in the Detective Legacy. Sorry, I just want to double check something on the status of the last upload. I'm bringing it up to YouTube. Oh dear. Okay, looks like it's in good shape. I was just a little worried that the, sorry, I was a little worried that the, upload might have been interrupted by me starting the game, which would mean that there was no episode for Thursday. Of course, you will have, at the time that you see this video, you will see that that was not, not a legitimate worry. Okay, so. We've got a few things that have been that have happened. We've been able to get to the Mantis. We're slowly starting to build our ranks. Of course, I've been playing on fast forward simply because it takes about 2 minutes to get a new follower, and there's a lot of followers, so we're gonna need to take a while to do it. And of course, because this Librarian challenge is all about keeping one copy of all of the texts, I don't quite have the same range of options available to me. One thing I could try to do is do some early expeditions, but the drawback there would be if I don't have the skills required, this would result in at minimum losing some funds and potentially even losing some followers, or maybe even some of the vaults themselves, because I have a rival that's that's also going to want to take them. So I'm reasonably happy with where things are right now. However, I did pose a bit of a puzzle for people in the previous episode, and that was why, after leaving the study verb empty for so long, did I suddenly go and occasionally put a reason in? And it's basically because I have the Society of the Holy Wound, an occult society dedicated to the hours which open doors. In order to level up a character in the Society of the Holy Wound, I have to have a certain value of knock. And this is true of everything, basically, except for the Society, the Hydro one, the Secret Histories one. The Secret Histories one, you get to basically pick the aspect that your followers have. You can still move them up, you just can't move them up. Like, there's no equivalent to the key for Secret Histories. But in this case here, the fact that I need knock, originally I was, and again, this is a mistake that I made before, you can't turn Secret Histories into knock. However, you can do this with influence. So if we take our subtle influence, it's going to accept any of these in order to bring it up to a higher level knock influence. So if we add erudition, and then we add the Iguvine right. Oh no! I wasn't thinking about the level that I had. I need a consent of wounds or higher. Nuts! Alright, so points for effort. But I was mistaken. So there's, I'm sure, a few of you who might have known this and knew that this couldn't be done. But anyway, so that was the reason why I added the erudition. I thought for some reason I would be able to get by with the Iguvine right to be able to level up the influence, to be able to give me the 4 for the upgrade for Leo. And what would have happened then is I would have had a higher level heart follower, which would help me clear out the reputation. As a consequence, I would be able to take a few more dangerous actions in terms of getting notoriety, because I would have somebody to be able to clear that out for me. Didn't quite turn out that way, but that's fine. We'll work with what we were given, and there's still a possibility that we can move Leo up through other means. It's just not as convenient as I previously thought it was. So that's a little bit of a disappointment in terms of a cliffhanger, but it's nice to learn. The real question is whether or not I'm going to remember that for the next time. Alright, we have got a hanger on. Now, I'll just give you an idea of what I was talking about here if it's not clear. So, I've got Leo, a believer. I can add the Iguvine right. So, to promote a believer to a disciple, I'll need to provide the appropriate aspect for the cult of at least the 7th intensity. So, if I add the subtle flaw, we're up to 6. So, if it was Enid, this would work. If it was... and if I had a higher level Iguvine right, I would actually be able to move that up as well. It may be, actually, that's... Nah, it can't be. Anyways, maybe that's why it isn't as high. But yeah, the idea here with the erudition was I was just hoping I'd be able to get the higher level knock influence. So whether or not I use the subtle flaw to bring someone into the cult or not, it's not as big of a deal, just because the real aim here was to try and bring in a higher level heart follower. In this case, it makes more sense to swell the ranks, so... Alright, Season of Sickness coming up, so I already have the Vitality, but I might as well get a replacement. Alright, I walked in the wood last night, and the scissors worked in the distance, and furred things crammed my mouth and swarmed my ears, and I felt the old urge to drop to wolf wars and nose among the roots. But I remembered that I walk upright by day, and I know fire and steel and words. And at last I found where the velvet had concealed a secret on tree bark beneath moss. I read it then with the tips of my fingers, and I think now that I could write it in full. So we've now got 5 occult scraps. We'll head back to the wood right away. And we finished the investigation. My investigation has turned up no new clues. We also have the result of the murder attempt. Oh dear! This may give me some breathing space, but it may ultimately bring the Suppression Bureau to my door. The spirit has departed. At some point, the smell will be so bad you'll have to dispose of it. But here it is for now. It may attract attention. It may be used to impress the impressionable. Even after the corpse is gone, notoriety will remain. So, I do have an idea about how I might get rid of that. So, no thank you, Rhaenyra. Investigating a target, the more reason I use, the better my chance of success. Come with me, so new passion. And a Season of Ambitions is coming up. Actually, I don't have an idea of what to do with the human corpse because of the talk verbs currently used, so... Got 2 notoriety on the table, which is dangerous for me. Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. I suppose I'll use this peculiar rumor. My investigation has turned up no new leads. Really? I have some evidence about a murder that recently happened. Investigating a target, the more reason I use, the my better chance of success. Alright, so many things rise from the well in the wood. Last night it was a swarm with wormy roots. The trees clustered and whispered. Perhaps they were welcoming the influx. I found a sleeping soul ensnared in the roots, and I helped them struggle free. When they wake, they will recall my face, as I do theirs. So we will explore this peculiar rumor. I suspect that at the end of this story, I may find someone who will hear what I have to say. And that's just because right now I've got 2 notoriety, so a 3rd one on the table. Like it's not really any more dangerous than, you know, than it was before. So, I mean, there's about 60 seconds extra that I'm going to be extending one of these for. Like in practical terms, there is a small cost to this, but I figure now's as good a time as any to potentially impose that cost. All right, we've got Dorothy. Dorothy is an enthusiastic sort with an eclectic reading habit. She's fascinated by my hints about the shapes beneath the world's skin. So talking publicly about the invisible arts will attract attention. Perhaps that's what I want. And here we've got sickness. This illness has damaged my health. I will need to rest before I'm fully recovered. So in a minute, we'll use that vitality. Okay, Season of Suspicion coming up, so I do need to get a little worried. Rival is considering an expedition. Won't turn out. Through the wood. The well in the wood is sacred to the Grail, the hour that hungers, and to the velvet, the hour that guards secrets. Tonight as I approached, it heaved with the velvet's moss, struggling waves of deep and vibrant green, pulsing again and again from its throat. It surged around my calves, rose to my thighs, and this morning, I still feel the velvet's breath strong within me. Progress. This constant clatter and closing of doors, the damp stains on the station walls, the smell of boot polish and unwashed constables. All this narrows to a single crystalline truth. I've made progress and earned myself some overtime pay. An unpromising address, but a promising resident. Cat Caro. Cat Caro, as she styles herself, earns a living as a stage medium and a fortune teller. She may have deeper talents. You may be able to recruit this acquaintance as a follower. Alright, let's start by curing the affliction. We'll then continue with our day job. Investigating a target, the more reason I use, the better my chance of success. And the wrong kind of attention. The city is rife with journalists and detectives and other meddlers. How long will they leave me in peace? Dr. Natalia Dragon. She was laughed out of academia for her analysis of alternate histories, and it only made her more resolute. Now she works with the Suppression Bureau. So she's an idealist. Idealists cannot be demoralized, although sometimes their ideals can be turned against them. Meticulous, this hunter always succeeds in creating evidence from notoriety, so this is a particularly dangerous one for me to be dealing with. Hunter and mortal. Alright, let's think. Yeah, I'm okay with where we're at. We've got Season of Visions coming up. And a Course of the Heart. The sick room grows close and stale. Time to get out. And my investigations turned up no new leads. Alright, back to work. Now I pass between scarbark trees. The moon passes behind branches, though her fingers remain in my hair. I'm stumbling over roots now. It is tempting to drop to all fours to avoid the low branches. Pale wings move deep in the night. Eau Claire. Eau Claire has a scholarly aspect and a morbid streak. You might be able to recruit this acquaintance as a follower. Season of Ambitions. Now, if Rhaenyra tries to murder Natalia Dragon, I'm going to be very mad. My own heart pumps more strongly today. Actually, let's turn that into something... Well, we'll wait, but I'll turn this into something a little longer lived, I think. I'll take that gold scrap. I walked in the wood last night, and the scissors worked in the distance, and the furred things crammed my mouth and swarmed my ears, and I felt the old urge to drop to wolf fours and nose among the roots. But I remembered that I walk upright by day, and I know fire and steel and words, and at last I found where the velvet had concealed a secret upon tree bark beneath moss. I read it then with the tips of my fingers, and I think now that I could write it in full. My investigations turned up no new clues. So we're very wealthy. God, those government workers, what can I say? All right. Tentative evidence, reason. Come with me. What is Rhaenyra up to now? Cautious scheme. Here's another who would ascend before me. Alright, we're getting to a point of safety with the evidence. Rivals at their business in the shadows. They're still in hiding. What exactly are they up to? I don't think I want to follow up on the peculiar rumor, so let's do the Temple of Wheel. Subtle Flaw's nice. I need something a little bit more, though. Last night, I came in the wood to the high jagged rock called the Temple of the Wheel. Its flank, patched with black lichen and eye signs, opened like a mouth beneath my hands, and I walked in the whispering space within. The gods who were stone, the first of the hours, are almost all gone now, but here their voices remain. Wheel, Flint, Tide, and others without names. Okay, so we've got the Subtle Flaw here. Again, not as useful to us as we thought previously, and we've made progress. constant clatter of closing doors, damp stains on the station walls, the smell of boot polish, and unwashed constables. All of this narrows to a single crystalline truth. I've made progress and earned myself some overtime pay. Okay, so I do have to worry a little bit about my mood. Let's see what comes up next. Okay, Season of Despair, of course. Come with me, we've got a hanger on. I think in this case, I don't feel great about this, to be completely honest, but I am going to risk a trip to the Ecdysis Club. Actually, no, I'm not. Because there's nothing I can do to fix that at the moment anyway. The rebel has been up to some kind of mischief, and the Suppression Bureau may take note. So they're still at level 3. So the reason I didn't go to the Ecdysis Club is that I'm going to the dread is going to be picked up anyway. So in this case, I'll see whether or not a Season of Ardors comes by, for instance. Right, I won't complain about a furtive truth. In my sleep, I came to the High Jagged Rock, which is still called the Temple of the Wheel, though the hour called Wheel is long extinct. Another hand had scratched a secret in the black lichen on its flank. Sorry, in the black lantern on its flank. I burned that secret into my memory to preserve for waking before the velvet came out of the velvet wood depths and erased it. The velvet is jealous of her secrets. Okay. Let's go... So I'm going to bring a little more order onto the desktop here. So let's take my Mystique and put these down here. Well, Mystique and Notoriety. So I'm pretty happy with the fact there's nothing... Yeah, there's nothing that can... there is nothing that can trap me with the... with the Notoriety now. I'm going to try for 30 seconds. I mean, we'll still get hit by the dread, but maybe this will turn into something interesting. It'll probably just turn into a fascination and I'll be in more trouble. Investigating a target, the more reason I use, the better my chance of success. Bleak thoughts, dark days, I must be careful not to let doubts creep in. And yep, Season of Vision's coming up, so come with me. This could go badly. Of course. Let's go to the Ecdysis Club. The entrance is lost beneath soft drapes of crimson, cinnabar, and encardine. Above the door, the club motto, Ingi rum imus nocteat consumi marigni. It has been rendered as into the night circle we fly until the fire enjoys us. Nightly pleasures at the Cabaret Club. The drinks, the songs, the light, the arcing walls, the smoke blue haze, the press and sway of clothed and unclothed flesh. So, this is one of these cases where the individual actions were correct. The timing could not have been worse. So does it make sense to do the, explore the fleeting reminiscence in the face of the dread? That would have, in this case, it would have been the right call because we could have combined the dread and the fascination to annihilate the dread. However, if you do that 30 seconds before a Season of Despair comes by, that's actually a terrible choice because what you do is you wind up with fascination on the table and potentially no way to get rid of it, which is exactly what's happened here. We now have a Season of Visions, and what makes this particularly thorny is the fact that if, let's just say I don't have a way of getting rid of this. So for instance, let's say that this was the one that generated Notoriety rather than something else. What this means is, where Despair would normally turn into a fleeting reminiscence and be able to neutralize a fascination, essentially now every negative mood that pops up is something that can potentially end the playthrough. or well, put me closer to ending the playthrough. So in this case here, we got kind of lucky because contentment's going to get rid of the bleak thoughts, and then the bleak thoughts going away will produce a fleeting reminiscence. So I got lucky here, but something I maybe want to pay a little closer to. I want to pay a little bit closer attention to in the future. I have purchased pleasure. I reel home in the ungodly hours and collapse into bed. All right, I walked in the wood last night, and the scissors worked in the distance, and the furred things crammed my mouth and swarmed my ears, and I felt the old urge to drop to wolf wars and nose among the roots, but I remembered that I walk upright by day, and I know fire and steel and words, and at last I found where the velvet had concealed a secret on tree bark beneath moss. I read it then with the tips of my fingers, and I think that now that I could write it in full. So as before, we go back to the wood. There's a lot of occult scraps that I need to pick up for what I have planned. And Season of Ardor, so we would have got our contentment anyway, but I'm happy enough with this result. We've got another dread, but or another night terrors, but in this case we're fine because the Season of Despair is not going to hit us. We also have a contentment we can get right away. So I wake in the night, my palms, my face are beaded with sweat. I came to the Temple of the Wheel, that high and jagged rock, that memorial to dead gods. Those who take their own lives sometimes first cast themselves from its peak in dream. I found another sleeping soul, scratching the sign of the eye into the lichen at its peak. I do not recall what passed between us, but I will recognize their face in the waking world. Now, this is a little dangerous, but I am going to take advantage of the peculiar rumor here because we are free of notoriety at the moment. Well, let's give it the 2 seconds and see if we've got a Season of Suspicion coming up. And progress, the constant clatter of closing doors, the damp stains on the station wall, the smell of boot polish and unwashed constables. All this narrows to a single crystalline truth. I've made progress and earned myself some overtime pay. Okay, back to the woods. And it is a Season of Suspicion, so it's good that I didn't follow that peculiar rumor. Some days are better than others. Sometimes the sky is nothing like a filthy sheet. Sometimes the river runs clear. Okay, new mentor. We can learn from each other. And paintings whisper, windows wink. I know that these things are not true, but how can I be certain? In my sleep, I came to the high jagged rock, which is still called the Temple of the Wheel, though the hour called Wheel is long extinct. Another hand had scratched a secret in black lantern on its flank. I burned that secret into my memory to preserve for waking, before the velvet came out of the velvet wood depths and erased it. The velvet is jealous of her secrets. And more progress. Alright, there's a few things we want to do here, so let's combine the dread and the contentment to clear my mind. I remember that I was different before. Visions abate, the solidity of the everyday banishes phantoms. I tether myself to the everyday. We will still do our work. Yep, everything is as it should be. We can learn from each other. Dr. Ibn al-Adim. So he may be my source of Aramaic. In fact, I believe I require Spintra in this case. If I need to learn Aramaic, here is one who will help, but I'll need to pay in Spintra, the currency of the hidden world. So the doctor would like help with his research. Not directly related to getting more followers, but it's nice to know if I can fulfill one of these commissions or not. And a substantial work on the secret history, so this is actually something I can fulfill. Alright, back to work. Investigation has turned up no new leads, and the sun still moves, the wind still walks, my journals are the labyrinth clues. So, let's take that commission. In this case, Dr. Ibn al-Adim, called the Alapine, has offered you a commission. He's looking for a substantial treatise on the secret histories of the world. So we put the furtive truth in, we put some reason in. This will be useful in a commission, and of course we continue to go to the wood because I haven't hit my quota of occult scraps yet. Now I pass between scarbark trees, the moon passes behind the branches, though her fingers remain in my hair. I'm stumbling over roots now. It is tempting to drop to all fours to avoid the low branches. Pale winds move deep in the night. And the rival's considering an expedition, so I'm not too worried about that. I walked in the wood last night, and the scissors worked in the distance, and furred things crammed my mouth and swarmed my ears, and I felt the old urge to drop to wolf fours and nose amongst the roots. But I remembered that I walk upright by day, and I know fire and steel and words. And at last I found where the velvet had concealed a secret on tree bark beneath moss. I read it then with the tips of my fingers, and I think now that I could write it all in full. So we've been running pretty hot for the last little while, so let's just take a second here and bring everything back into order. I have finished the manuscripts. On the history is a substantial investigation, obscure information on the suppressed truths of many pasts. So put the tentative evidence over here. Have to... Well, that's interesting. Oh, right, because it's technically Secret Histories 4. Okay, let's go back to work. We don't need to worry about the season of suspicion. Come with me, Sylvia. Sylvia lost her eye in the woods when she was 9 years old. Every year at Candlemas, she returns to the place she buried it. Let's talk with Dr. Adim to get paid. I have what the doctor requested. I received the currency of the secret world, and my patron has let tantalizing information slip. Alright, back to our usual habits. Okay, in the wood beyond the wall, in the wood beyond the walls of the Mansus, a jagged rock rears like the petrified remains of a dancing giant. I trailed my hand along its flank, over the eye signs and lichen and crude graffiti of the lesser wood powers, and I felt the thrumming of the wheel, which has passed. It has passed, but something continues. So trembling airs that'll eventually turn into vitality. It's hard to say there's ever a situation where you don't need vitality. It's nice as kind of nice as an insurance policy. Actually, it occurs to me I didn't combine the two vitality I said I was going to earlier, but that's life. But yeah, you know, vitality is just a nice little insurance policy against any sickness that might come up. The clouds part, the wolf despair prowls elsewhere, no dread empowers this despair, it's over for now. Move the Mystique down, although that'll get picked up by Dr. Natalia Dragon. Put the erudition beside the other influences, and our investigations turned up no new clues, which is completely fine. I mean, finishing the investigation's kind of nice because it does wind up giving me some extra money. Money's not really the thing that's holding me back right now. It's my lack of contacts. So let's do one more round of this. I know we're at the 30-second mark, but what I've been trying to do here is push ahead in terms of getting my numbers. If I can minimize the number of episodes that are spent sort of trying to pick up some followers, that's, I think, better for the series overall. So, depending on how that how long the investigation takes, I'm sorry, I really wanted to read that. Let's do one more round. A murderous scream. All right. Maybe now I don't want Natalia Dragon to finish her investigation. Eldridge. An elegant man of inelegant habits. Okay, so this case we will get a commission from Dr. Rabin. Here's what he needs, a substantial lantern commission, so that ends. There's one more possibility. We could get a we could potentially get a commission from Poppy, although obviously that involves a sacrifice. I walked in the wood last night, and the scissors worked in the distance, and furred things crammed my mouth and swarmed my ears, and I felt the old urge to drop to wolf fours and nose among the roots. But I remembered that I walk upright by day, and I know fire and steel in words, and at last I found where the velvet had concealed a secret on tree bark beneath moss. I read it then with the tips of my fingers, and I think now that I could write it in full. So, I'm not going to see these things through to the end, but I will at least queue them up. So we still want to visit the wood. It's mostly just because it's only going to take a minute, and we've got a minute before this turns into sickness. We've got 118 seconds left on the vitality, so we're fine there. Don't have much I need to do with the work slot. I don't have Edge Forge or Lantern to be able to... So, just to be clear on this too, it has to be lore, so I couldn't, contemplate the Bronze Spintra and turn that into an article. So in this case here, until I get Edge Forge or Lantern lore, or if I make a deal with Poppy, I don't have any further commissions that I can do. I also don't think Poppy asks for Secret Histories commissions or knock commissions. I'm trying to remember who would ask for a knock commission. Doesn't matter. But yeah, so nothing else to do with my work verb other than to go to the office, so... but yeah, I mean, I think you've gotten a bit of an idea in terms of what the main goal right now is. So the only way I'm going to be getting more books is by doing expeditions. Now, there is a small argument for just going and doing an expedition now. So in terms of the aspects that I have access to, I hope I can do this from memory, but we've got Victor is Edge, Leo is Heart, Saliba is Grail, Enid is Knock, Porter is Moth, Dorothy's Heart, Cat Caro is Lantern, Eau Claire is Winter, Sylvia is Moth, and Eldridge is Edge. So the only thing I'm missing is Forge, actually, although in the cases that we need Forge, if you're going up against the Avalanches, it's Forge or Winter. If you're going up against the Traps, it's Lantern or Forge. If you're going up against Warded Doors, it's Forge or Knock. I can't think of a situation where I would need Forge and I don't have something that would be an alternative to it. So there is a small argument here that I could in fact start going on expeditions now with the existing followers that I have. One drawback behind this is that so ideally I would have a high-level heart follower or a high-level moth follower to deal with any evidence that comes up. But essentially the question is, how long do I want to delay the actions that I want to take? Because of course, the more books that I get, essentially if I can get something that I know I can get another copy of, then I can read it. That opens my possibilities as far as lore is concerned. But that's kind of tipping my hand in terms of what the overall plan is. But I think we're actually in a pretty decent space. I'll put it to you this way. I wasn't actually expecting to be in this spot at the end of this, by the end of this week, like in this episode here. We're behind on a couple of things, so I was thinking that I might be able to try some shenanigans with knock and influence. But it's not the end of the world. There are other things that I can do. The other thing I'm curious about is when you start romances, it depends on what your desire is. So I am slightly curious whether or not it is actually possible to romance someone when you have the sealed bureau file as a desire. I think that'll actually be kind of a fun little test. Obviously that'll take time, that'll take up some resources that I might be able to use otherwise, but it's interesting enough to me that I think it will be worth trying. So those are some previews in terms of what I'm up to, but for those of you who are waiting for the expeditions, they're not as far away as they seem, but I do have a couple of things that I want to get through before. I don't know, just for the purposes of safety, there's definitely a couple of things that I can see as being a good idea to do before we go too aggressively on the expeditions. And if I can, I would like to get those out of the way. But as always, thank you very much for watching. We will see you after the weekend for Monday for the next episode. Until then, take care.